I'll get someone to take your place.
Yeah, you go ahead. I watch the counter.
You go ahead. I'll watch Ravelli.
Who's going to watch you?
Hi, I'm Rob, and for some time I've been reviewing the movies made by the classic zany comedy team, the Marx Brothers, Groucho, Chico, Harpo, and sometimes Zeppo. They starred in 13 comedies between 1929 and 1949, and today I'm going to be reviewing their 11th film. It's called The Big Store. It came out in 1941, and it was the last of 5 films that the brothers made at MGM, starting with, of course, Night at the Opera. Many Marx Brothers fans feel that the quality of these MGM's films lessened as the series went on, and many have labeled The Big Store to be their worst film, and for me, I do kind of agree with that. The Big Store has Groucho, Chico, and Harpo working to save a department store owned by Groucho's frequent love interest, Margaret Dumont. Groucho's plays Detective Wolf J. Flywheel, whom Dumont's character has hired to watch over her popular singer nephew, Tommy Rogers, played by Tony Martin. Chico is a piano teacher for Tommy's school, as well as his self-appointed bodyguard, and Harpo, surprisingly enough, is Groucho's assistant, and his name is Wacky in the film. The brothers discover that the store's crooked manager is planning on bumping off Tommy and taking over the store and marrying Margaret Dumont.
I left her purse in my car. This lovable little waif unselfishly returns it and is accused of being a thief.
Now, The Big Store for me was one of the weirdest and saddest experiences I had during a Marx Brothers film. The best way I can describe it is that it's an MGM musical comedy from the time period that happens to have the Marx Brothers in it, or it's a movie that was not, or for me it could have been the movie that was not originally written for them and they just got put in there. The MGM musicals of the time period were often light entertainment, mixing some drama, songs, comedy relief, and dancing, while the Marx Brothers movies often poked fun at society and they ran wild during fancy occasions. But while watching The Big Store, I kind of missed the earlier films that were full of rapid one-liners, memorable comedy routines, and colorful characters, and I feel like this movie did not take advantage of what the team could do. I mean, for example, Chico's character is neither his con artist character nor his dumb one, and I felt like he was kind of bland here. Groucho does get a few one-liners, but they don't always work, and I would say Harpo probably comes off the best with his visual gags in this film. In The Big Store, Groucho sings a musical number, Sing While You Sell, with a 1940s swing vocal group with him and Harpo doing dance routines.
Mr. Flywheel, you say you're the man who will improve things. Won't you tell us, Mr. Wolf J, how then can we move things?
Tell us, pretty flywheel,
Tell us now, tell us how, tell us
I know what you're thinking, Rob. What do you expect? This movie was made in 1941, but I mean, if you watch the earlier Marx Brothers songs, their songs fit more in with the comical tone. For example, look at Hooray for Captain Spaulding and Animal Crackers, or I'm Against It in Horse Feathers. Yes, these songs were done in the 1930s, but they don't feel too dated, and they really fit in with the story pretty well. Also, Big Store features cartoonish background music, which was a rarity in a Marx Brothers film, and the chase suite sequence at the end uses sound effects and overutilized visuals that just did not fit their zany style, as the villain is chasing them and they're often bumping into store objects. There are a few pros with The Big Store. Groucho is paired up with Harpo, and granted that doesn't really happen very often, but it was kind of nice to see. They get an amusing scene where they have to turn Groucho's apartment into a detective office for Margaret Dumont. And speaking of Margaret Dumont, one of the highlights of the film for me was when Groucho is interviewing her. Their chemistry is still there, and the sequence is probably one of the most hilarious ones in this particular film. It's just too bad that there wasn't more scenes with Dumont, as this would end up being her last film with the team. That she first appeared with them in their first movie, The Coconuts, back in 1929.
Well, madam, take this down. Go on, please.
I saw your name in the top five. Need your protection.
Another highlight was Chico and Harpo playing a duet together on the piano, and Harpo gets his harp solo, although it's a little bit unusual but interesting nonetheless. It has him imagining himself in the 1700s while he's playing the harp. Doris DeMille from Day After Races makes a fine stock villain, but the rest of the cast is kind of forgettable. Virginia Gray plays Tommy's love interest, and she doesn't really get that much to do. And as I mentioned, Tommy is played by Tony Martin, who was a very popular singer at the time. And while his acting is okay, and he has a nice singing voice, I kind of had a hard time watching him when he was singing his musical numbers because he often had a cold look if you compare him to Alan Jones, who had a little bit more emotion. That and perhaps the songs that he were given were not really that great. The Big Store, I thought, had a couple of high points, such as Margaret Dumont, but I felt like the film was a disappointment. The brothers, I thought, were watered down, the songs were forgettable, the romantic leads were not that great, and the material was a little bit cartoonish and sometimes out of character for the team. If you treat it as just an MGM comedy, you might like it, but as a Marx Brothers movie, you may be faced with some disappointment. Alright, so that's my review of The Big Store. Go ahead and post your comments about the movie. Do you agree with me? Do you think I'm being too harsh on the movie? Go ahead and post your thoughts. Or if you're a Marx Brothers fan, go ahead and post your comments as well. So that means I just got 2 more movies to go. I got A Night at Casablanca and Love Happy, and hopefully I can get those out real soon. Anyway, thank you very much for watching.
Oh, you didn't think I was a real detective, eh?
If you're a detective, I'm a monkey's uncle.
Keep your family out of this.
Oh, please.
This is between we 2 men and this little slip of a girl.